Acting Majority Leader Angara is recognized.
Morning, Mr. President, Senators, distinguished guests. The departments and agencies to be taken up are, the first is the Civil Service Commission, the Commission on Human Rights, and the Presidential Management Staff, Mr. President. So, first we will resume with the Office of the Civil Service Commission. I move for recognition as the sponsor, Mr. President. I'm ready to...
The consideration of the budget of the Civil Service Commission, the Career Executive Service Board is in order. The Minority Leader is recognized.
I move for the approval, Mr.
Can I first ask, what is the budget?
Well,
For the record, maybe we know before we approve it, what is the budget of the CSC?
It is 1.231 billion pesos,
Right.
Mr. President.
Upon
Along with the
most-
Career Executive Service Board, which has a budget of 85 billion, Mr. President.
85 million, all right. With that, Senator Enrile.
I have no question, Mr. President.
All right. There being no question from any other member of the chamber, and upon motion of the Minority Leader, the budget of the Civil Service Commission and the Career Executive Service Board is hereby referred to the plenary for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Minority Leader. Next up, Mr. President, is the budget of the Commission on Human Rights. Again, I move for recognition as the sponsor.
The consideration of the budget of the Commission on Human Rights is in order. The sponsor, Senator Angara, is recognized to present the budget. For the record, how much is the budget of the CHR?
Mr. President, the budget of the CHR is for 2016 is 460.026.
460 million budget.
Million, yes.
We acknowledge for the record the presence of the chairman and commissioners of the Commission on Human Rights. Senator Enrile, the Minority Leader, is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to find out if this agency covers the problem of the killings of Lubans.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes, distinguished Minority Leader. That is within the purview of the Commission on Human Rights.
What is their findings so far regarding the supposed killings of Lubans?
They are still completing their fact-finding reports, Mr. President.
No findings of facts yet. How many Lubans have been killed?
How many lumens?
And what kind of Lubans are these? Higa-unons?
How many have been killed? But they are still verifying the numbers, Mr. President. But from as low as 50 lumads to as high of reports of 300 being killed, Mr. President.
What tribes are these? And where are these killings?
Manobo, Mr. President. Mostly Manobos, Bukidnons. Various tribes, Mr. President, in the area of Surigao Sur, Davao del Norte, and Bukidnon, Mr. President.
Bukidnon.
Southern Bukidnon, Mr. President.
Does the Commission on Human Rights have an idea why these killings are happening? My goodness, this is the feeling that I get, and I'm quite frank with you. Throughout the deliberation of the budget for 2016, every agency of government that we ask, they hesitate. The time frame is indeterminable. There is a hesitancy to to speak or to reveal facts. Why? Do you have any idea or who are doing the killings here? The entire government? We're giving you a budget of 3 trillion and we are dealing with lives. Can you tell us?
Yes, Mr. President. The killings are caused by various paramilitary groups, and some are done by rebels.
Military groups.
Paramilitary.
What is the motive of the military groups to kill these people? Are they suspected communists or suspected rebels or what?
Paramilitary, Manong. Paramilitary groups.
What paramilitary units? CAFGOS?
Similar to CAFGOS, Mr. President. But according to the AFP, they are not attached to the AFP.
Why don't we give this agency the money to conduct their investigation? Evidently, they're paralyzed.
Yeah. That's a good idea, Mr. President. The Commission is actually requesting for funding for witness protection because I think some people are scared to give testimony because of fear of retribution.
Mr. President, this is a sorry condition of the country. If the people are becoming afraid to speak. We are nearing the end of our social life.
The CHR, Mr. President, is completing the report according to the chairperson.
How can the who in the military is the army organizing paramilitary units? For what? What is the purpose of these paramilitary units?
Two forms. According to the chairperson, it is self-defense forces. Self-defense forces.
Defense forces? Well, we have only the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Police. Which ones?
According to the commission, Mr. President, they are none of the forces mentioned by the good minority leader. They are self-defense forces organized by the tribes.
Self-defense forces?
Organized by the various tribes.
Organized by the various
called
tribes?
Bagani.
Who?
They call the self-defense forces Bagani, Mr. President. Bagani. Or it's a local term for warriors, Mr. President. Bagani.
I cannot understand. Are these the paramilitary units mentioned, or are these Baganis members of tribes? Is this an intertribal conflict in Mindanao again?
It's quite a complex situation according to the chairperson, but they're intertribal, Mr. President. Many of them are members of tribes also.
So I thought we are talking of military, the military as official military organization of the country as responsible.
Paramilitary, Mr. President, not official military.
Paramilitary.
But paramilitary, yes. Meaning armed groups, Mr. President.
So they're not really instruments of legitimate violence of the government.
No, Mr. President.
But nonetheless, is this within the mandate of the Human Rights Commission?
Possible human rights. Yes, to investigate possible human rights violations, Mr. President.
Have you taken this up with the Department of Interior and Local Governments.
They're coordinating with the police, Mr. President, for purposes of investigation. And the chairperson says they're also coordinating with the Department of Justice, and they hope to complete their investigations.
The Department of Justice cannot do anything. Did you coordinate this with the Secretary of Defense, Voltaire Gasmin?
Not directly with the Secretary, with Secretary Gasmin, Mr. President, but with the generals on the ground, according to...
For heaven's sake, those generals will not move without orders. Why don't you take it up with the Cabinet Secretary who has control over them?
That's a good idea, Mr. President. I think we will advise the...
Secretary of Interior, all the way to the President. My God, if you do not know how to run the government,
Chairperson Gascon says he has been coordinating with the new Secretary of the Interior, or DILG, Secretary Sarmiento, to look into the problem.
You take it up with the Defense Secretary. We have had this problem before.
They are saying they will take it up, Mr. President.
They cannot take, you cannot, these underlings cannot handle this. It has to be the highest level if possible. And you get an order, an official order to do something about it.
Yes, we agree, Mr. President. I think that is a step that must be taken in the future.
Are there big cheeses in the country involved? That's why we hesitate. Even government, I sense that even government is hesitating.
At the moment, it doesn't seem so, Mr. President, according to them. But they're still investigating maybe if there are big business interests involved. Because of certain conflict areas involve mining areas, Mr. President.
Surigao is a mining area.
Compostela Valley, Mr. President.
Compostela Valley is a banana area.
Davao Norte, Mr. President.
Also a mining area. What else?
What else?
Bukidnon.
Southern Bukidnon,
Is
Mr. President.
pineapple area.
Agusan Sur, Mr. President.
Agusan del Sur.
Sur, yes.
Then you are dealing with Higaonons.
Yes, Mr. President. Tigaonons and Manobos, according to them.
Yeah. My God, that is why you have an army. You have legitimate forces to use the guns, if necessary, in order to establish order. How can there be a government unless you use these instruments of government? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Minority Leader. Is there any other member of the chamber who would wish to raise questions on the budget of the CHR? The chair sees, I'm sorry, Senator Binay.
Mr. President, may I be allowed to ask a few questions?
Please proceed.
Just to follow up on the questioning of our minority floor leader. When did you start the investigation?
It was within a few days of the incident in August when some Lumads were killed, and then there was a full-blown inquiry in September, public inquiry in September, Your Honor, Mr. President.
And how many hearings have CHR conducted?
Well, the fact-finding was conducted over a period of several days, Your Honor, and but the public inquiry was two whole days.
Just 2 days.
2 days, but the fact-finding was continuing over a number of days.
And when do you plan to release your report?
They're hoping, ideally, to have it ready in the next 2 weeks, Madam Senator, Mr. President.
Mr. President, may we request a copy of the report? Of
Certainly,
CHR?
certainly, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator Binay. Any other member of the chamber who wishes to raise questions? The
Mr. President,
chair
if there are
hears
no
none.
other members who wish to raise questions on the budget of the CHR, we move that it be submitted for consideration of the body.
Any objection? Hearing none, the budget of the Commission on Human Rights is submitted to the plenary for appropriate consideration. Next agency, Mr. Acting Majority Leader, the Presidential Management Staff.
Who's defending your budget?
Yes. Oh, sabihin mo kay Al.
Okay, no question. Mas matanda naman ito sa'yo. Ha? Maybe wala.
Wala.
Wala kayong tanong sa PMS.
Majority Leader is recognized.
Mr. President, the next agency for consideration is the PMS, or the Presidential Management Staff, and to sponsor the budget, I move that we recognize Senator Bam Aquino.
The consideration of the budget of the Presidential Management Staff is in order. To present the budget to the Chamber, Senator Benigno Bam Aquino is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. For the record, Mr. President, the budget of the Presidential Management Staff is 360,899,000 pesos.
360 million.
The minority has no question, Mr.
The
President.
minority has no question, as manifested by Senator Enrile. Any other member of the Chamber who would want to raise questions?
Mr. President, no other members of the chamber would want to raise questions. We move that the budget of the PMS be submitted for consideration of the body.
Any objection? Hearing none, the budget of the Presidential Management Staff is hereby submitted for the consideration of the plenary at the appropriate session. We declare a 1-minute suspension to allow our resource persons from the next agency to occupy the appropriate seats. Seso ba yan? Seso. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the chairperson of the Finance Committee, Senator Lauren Legarda, to sponsor the budget of the Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG.
The consideration of the budget of the Department of Interior and Local Government, DILG, is in order. The chair recognizes the principal sponsor, the chair of the Committee on Finance, Senator Lauren Legarda. Before the chair recognizes any member of the chamber for the period of interpellation, may we request the principal sponsor to state for the record what is the budget of the DILG.
Please state the budget of DILG. State the budget.
Can we have it on record? What is the budget of the DILG?
Thank you, Mr. President. The budget of the Department of Interior and Local Government amounts to 123,838,266,000.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor. The chair will now recognize any member of the chamber who wishes to avail of the period of interpellation, and we recognize Senator Soto, the gentleman from Cebu and Quezon City.
And Nueva Ecija, Mr. President. Thank you.
And Nueva Ecija.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the Chairman of the Committee on Finance for allowing us to continue on the deliberations on the budget of the General Appropriations Act. Mr. President, the Local Government Support Fund, LGSF, has substantially increased in the DILG budget from 3.1 billion in 2014 to now 18.4 billion. May we know the reason for the substantial increase? This is an increase of 15.3 billion.
Mr. President, the Local Government Support Fund is a fund that is the byproduct or the source of funds of the bottom-up budgeting. As you know, the bottom-up budgeting is a new name for what used to be called the grassroots participatory budgeting, where stakeholders in the grassroots are consulted on the needs of the communities. And this is the fund that will finance the bottom-up budgeting process.
So what are these projects that are covered by this Local Government Support Fund and bottom-up budgeting? What are the projects, Mr. President?
Local infrastructure is included there, Mr. President, including small water project, small roads, access roads, access paths, the need for water in waterless barangays, Mr. President. Even small evacuation centers. You will recall in the DPWH budget, they had provided for evacuation centers in every region. These are the big ones. But in areas which are considered vulnerable, small evacuation centers, per the request of local governments, will be installed in non-geohazard areas.
But, Mr. President, the DILG budget includes already 1.8 billion allocation for water supply, 647 million for housing, and 4.1 billion for community projects. Iba pa ito eh. Paano magiging local government support fund din po ito mga ito? A 15.3 billion increase. The projects that you mentioned are covered by another part of their budget.
Yes. You're correct, Mr. President. The waterless municipalities are funded and provided under the provision that you mentioned. In the course of the consultation with other LGUs, there are LGUs and areas which were not provided for under this provision on waterless municipalities, and therefore this is a byproduct of the BUB budgeting.
So ito pa yung mga kulang, parang that's what you're saying. All right.
Those were not covered.
So
and
how-
these are actually, Mr. President, yung mga maliliit, small, far-flung, underserved, unserved, and through the BUB project, we hope to make government's presence felt in the most far-flung areas.
How is it distributed, Mr. President? Are there determined, aside from that, what are the predetermined municipalities and provincial recipients for the LTSF and this other budget that you have for the projects that you mentioned? Why not just include it in the projects? Bakit nakahiwalay pa?
The Salin Tubig, Mr. President, is a program of the DILG, which is in the long term. But the 1,590 municipalities which were consulted under the BUB program of government, the funds of that goes to the LGSF. In short, the Salin Tubig is a regular program for waterless municipalities, and the provision for water under the BUB program, which is lodged in the Local Government Support Fund, goes to areas which do not have water. Yung pong mga hindi na isama sa salintubig na programa, na regular po ng programa, ay nakasaad po sa BUB program sa LGSF.
Therefore, I would assume that you have a list of these predetermined municipalities and provincial recipients sa mga far-flung areas na yan, kulang, ano? So, meron kayo nito. And they are not just chosen.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They are not chosen. There is a category.
Yes. Mr. President, actually, I agree with you. During the hearing, and they know this, I asked the same question. Sabi ko, ano ba yung BUB? Bakit may duplication? Tinatanong ko po yan. At ito, pinag-aralan ko po ito at napakahaba, napakaliit, ay lahat po ng mga lugar sa mga liblib na barangay at mga municipality kung saan po ay nandun ang mga serbisyo publiko na bibigay ng DILG. Ito po silang lahat, napakakapal. Kung saan po ang mabibigyan ng road, saan ang mabibigyan ng iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno. Actually, this is a multi-agency project. Hindi naman po yung need lang ng DILG ang ibibigay. Kung anong ibibigay ng BIFAR, anong ibibigay ng DOH, anong ibibigay po ng DA. Ito po. And I can actually give you the whole list and the whole municipality. I wanted to make sure that this was not going to be used for political purposes. Hindi yung lump sum na pondo, may kampanya, kandidato nila, ito ang pondo, ibigay nyo sa mayor. Hindi po ganon. Ito po yung kinonsulta, sinangguni, inallocate, line item po nandyan, at maaring i-monitor at dinadaan sa COA. Hindi ba?
So, for 5 years, hindi nila naisip yan. Ngayon nila naisip. 5 years, wala yan sa mga budget No?
4 years.
For 5 years, hindi na pag-aralan yan. Ngayon lang na pag-aralan.
It's fourth year, Mr. President. Pang-apat na po.
Eh, bakit nga biglang ganyan ng biglang tumalon kung andyan na yan for 4 years? Bakit biglang 15.3 billion
It
additional?
escalated. On the first year, only 500 municipalities. Now, it's 1,590. Siguro, gaya po, let's say, ng National Greening Program ng DNR. Nagsimula po ito. Tapos nakita, successful, maraming humiling, gustong sumali rin dito. So, also,
Mr.
perhaps the
President.
availability of funds is also a
With the
consideration.
permission of Senator Ligarda and Senator Soto, may the chair recognize Senator Enrile.
With the permission of the two gentle lady and gentleman on the floor, just to test the veracity of this program, will you please open that book and go to the province of Cagayan and show me the towns
Show me a town.
that are waterless and the barangays. I will support this program. I will support this program, Mr. President, if they can show me that the areas in my province that will be benefited. If indeed this is done randomly, and not for political purpose.
With the permission of the chamber, we declare the recess for 1 minute to enable the sponsor to go over their files.
Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
May I just read into the record and eventually give to the good minority leader in the province of Cagayan, for example, sir, Abulog, Alcala, Alakapan, Amulong, Apari, Bagao, Ballesteros, Bugoy, Calayan, Camalanyugan, Claveria, Enrile, etc. Ito po, mahaba po yung mga LGSF na budget po sa patubig. Meron rin po dito yung roads and bridges. Ito po ay, let's say, meron pang Pamplona, Cagayan po, ay merong silang
ano ba ilalagay
rescue
ninyo
equipment. Meron po sila sa
Calayan
PIAC
po.
ng open
Sa
market
Calayan po,
building.
ano?
Meron po sa Sanchez Mira ng maintenance of drainage system. Meron po sa Tuaw na construction ng canal system. Meron po marami po, napakahabo po ng detalyang proyekto ng project title, project type, implementing unit, allocation, disbursement, and the status. Meron dyan nakalagay posted, ongoing, natapos. Napakahaba po ng mga proyekto sa bawat bayan. Kung gusto malaman ni Senator Binay sa Isabela, nandito. I'm sorry. I'm sorry?
Anong project dito sa Calayan?
I just read into the record, sir. I will repeat what I read. In Cagayan.
Calayan.
I'm sorry.
Calayan.
Kalayaan.
No, Calayan. Calayan.
Calayan.
Calayan. L-A-Y-A-N.
Calayan is here, sir. Calayan in Cagayan is a flood control, drainage canal, river and seawall. There's also the construction of an evacuation center. The amount is, where is Calayan? 2 and 3 million respectively. The obligation budget is 2 and 3 million, etc. It says posted. Posted means?
Thank you. Thank you. Now I believe. I believe.
Opo. In fact,
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. I would also like to see the province of Antique. I would like to, Senator Binay, to see the province of Isabela. I think it is important, and I will say this to the ILG, to kindly furnish each member of the chamber a copy of this thing. Maybe soft copy so we don't waste paper. Can it be emailed to the Committee on Finance and all of the members of the Finance Committee? Yes. So that at any one time, during a campaign or without a campaign, they can actually ask the mayors, ito ba'y na-deliver sa inyo? Ito ba'y top quality or inferior? Tinapos o hindi? Etc. So that we can see that your BUB actually exists and it's not a political thing. Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right. So, going back, the 15.3 billion increase is for the projects that you mentioned. Although there is a redundancy, you are saying, and the ILG is telling you that there were few municipalities before, and now it is expanded. Ganun, ano? Ilan dati? before when the budget was only 3.1 billion, the LGSF, ilan ang municipalities and provinces that were being
When it started in 2013, there were only 590 towns. Presently,
2013?
1,490.
Yeah, I'm sorry again. Sorry.
When it started,
In
it was
2013.
only a little more than 500. In short, 590 towns were the
590
beneficiaries of the BUB at the time, when it was
Okay.
called grassroots budgeting.
So hindi ito 4 years ago.
13?
2013, 2 years ago.
14, 15, 16, 4 years. Because we're discussing the 2016 budget. So 2016 would have been the fourth year.
Hindi, wala pa nga. Hindi, sabi nila 4 years ago eh. Sabi ninyo kanina eh.
2013, 14, 15, and then
Well, only
2016.
2015 eh.
So 3 years in operation, and we're discussing the fourth
Right.
year budget.
So
Yes.
after 3 years, they realized that aside from the 590 that they're helping, there will be how many more? That needs 15 billion?
1,490, including the initial 500.
Nilahat nyo na.
Actually, lahat na po.
Oh, so hindi na hindi na pumapasok doon sa sinasabi nyo kanina na na-determine ito dahil kung sino yung mahirap, kung sino yung kulang water supply, kung sino, di ba? Ibig sabihin nito, nilahat nyo na.
Yes.
I suppose so, no?
You're correct.
Okay, all right.
It started out, Mr. President, with just over 500. When they realized that they cannot favor each town and not serve the other, and that it would be best to put our resources in areas that will be the product of consultations with stakeholders on the ground. It can't be just the whim of the mayor. So what they did was they would consulted with people's organizations, with NGOs, with farmers and fisher folks, with informal settlers, etc., civil society. So it's not just the political powers that be that determines where the road goes and whether need. So when there's a broader consultation, then we have service closer to the people. I hope that is the intent. I hope that is also the result. We will only find out when the next administration will audit what you are doing.
All right. Moving to my second point, no?
In fact, I would request the COA, really, to do a performance audit of two things in government, the National Greening Program and the BUB. I think that would be instructional, not to look for fault, but to see whether the NGP, where we have put in, not your not your agency, of course, I'm just remembering our, put in billions and billions, tens of billions, 3, CCT, NGP, BUB. These are 3 highlights of the present administration, which we are defending. We want to see if the next administration should continue these programs if they are good. That's just my personal observation. Because I am one with you in looking at this, because I questioned it the same way during the hearing, Mr. Senator Soto.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nagkakaintindihan naman kasi tayo.
Oo, nagkakaintindihan tayo, but I really have difficulty trying to accept all of a sudden for 1 year 15 billion bigla for 2016. Dati naman ginagawa, and then dati naman nasa projects nila ito. Na gusto kong tanungin ngayon, I go to my second point. Sabi mo nga, anyway, sabi mo, ma-edit naman yun ng susunod, ma-audit yan ng susunod na administrasyon. Saan napunta itong additional na 15 billion na to for 2016 Now, the DILG budget includes, as I mentioned earlier, 1.8 billion allocation for water supply, 647 million for housing, and 4.1 billion for community projects. Paano namang napipili ito mga ito?
Consultation din, no?
Ganun din?
It is a process
thing.
of consultation. It's validated.
Yes, but it's the DILG who approves it pa rin. Kahit na humingi yung mga mayor ng ganyan, sabihin nila, ito kailangan namin. Ina-approve nila yan, ano?
itong barangay kung walang tubig, ha? Ilagay sa amin, check natin. Check mo nga ang...
Anyway, yeah, it's okay. So,
Mr. President, lahat po yan.
it's on record. Maliwanag yun eh, water supply, 1.8 billion, 647, housing, 4.1 billion, community projects. Yun ang hindi maliwanag. Ano itong community projects na kailangan ng 4.1 billion?
Is it a line item, community project? I'm not familiar
No.
with that.
It's a summary of Saling tubig, pamana.
Ano yung community project?
Well, anyway, I'll go direct to my question. Wag na yung mga projects na yan. I'll go direct to my question. Are these projects included in the mandate of the DILG? That is my question.
Yes, Mr. President, because the Department of Interior and Local Government is tasked to ensure that local governments provide its constituents and its people with the best services insofar as infrastructure, health, irrigation, etc. And so it is within their mandate that local governments are empowered to live in livable communities. That is why the process of consultation of BUB was initiated and continued so that the budgeting will not be from up. How can those living or working in Perch would actually know what Barangay de Cabobo in Coron, Palawan needs, where 75% of the people are Tagbanwas, whose fish pier was devastated by Yolanda and never done anymore? How will the DILG or senators or even congressmen know, for example, what a remote barangay in mainit in Mountain Province need if it is not based on budget BUB budgeting? In short, ito po yung sumisisid sa mga liblib na lugar para po maalam ang mga pangangailangan ng mga tao. In fact, pinapacheck ko yung mga barangay na napupuntahan ko sa mga liblib kung kasama dito. Kung hindi, kulang sila. So, I believe that is the intent to really bring government closer to the people. And as I said, COA should do a performance audit of this. If it was effective, if it was not used as a political tool to prop up anyone's candidacy, then it must be continued by government in the next administration. However, if it is being used politically and the 15 billion that you're asking me will be given as dole-outs in a campaign, that is completely wrong, and I'm sure and I'm certain that Secretary Sarmiento would not risk his good name for his political party.
All right. I'm not saying anything like that.
I thought you were thinking that way.
No, not at all. Not at all. For the record, I'm saying simply that this is included in their mandate. Like, for example, I think it's going to be a redundancy. Alisin na natin yung ibang departamentong gumagawa ng flood control. O nasa kanila, flood control. Delivery of potable water. Ay, yung mga saluwa, alisin na natin yun. Local roads and reconstruction. Local roads. Also DPWH, wag na. Reconstruction of health clinics. Ang Department of Health, wag na rin. At saka DPWH. Ginagawa lahat ng DILG ngayon to. Ba, makakatipid tayo kung i-collapse na natin lahat ng mga departamentong gumagawa niyan. Ilagay na natin sa DILG lahat. Makakatipid tayo sa bureaucracy. That's my point.
Yeah, Mr. President, you would notice that the projects here are small. These are small water systems, roads in the barangay, access path, etc. We cannot discontinue national highways and roads and bridges, etc. So, and also, you would recall that the Ministry of Local Government included community development before. Marshall Lo pa noon, no? Yeah. Ganun ba yun? Oo. So, this would really be included in the mandate of the ILG, because community development is an important integral essence of local governance.
All right. Community development. Basahin ko yung mandate ng DILG. To promote peace and order, ensure public safety, and strengthen local government capability.
Yes, I believe that through you empower local government capability, Mr. President, when you give them the resources. Just so that it's clear, Mr. President, the implementing agency for this is not the DILG, but it is downloaded to the LGUs and they implement the projects.
Yes, that should be the case. But what I'm saying is that, like the projects for roads, sa public works natin ilagay yung funding. Di ba? Yung reconstruction, health clinics, baka sa DPWH din, o kaya sa Department of Health. Don't you think so, Mr. President? Don't you think because of the amount involved, bilyones to eh. For just one item, additional 15.3 billion, naging 18 nga eh. Don't you think it would be more appropriate that these allocations be lodged in the proper agencies, departments, which has specifically mandate to implement those projects? And they have the expertise, these agencies and departments. I cannot see the expertise of the ILG on the reconstruction of health clinics and water supply.
Mr. President, it is the LGUs who implement this, not the DILG. And when you compute it by the number of LGUs who are the beneficiaries, it would amount to only 15 million per LGU. So it's really very micro. When you compute it in the 1590, 1,590, 1490, 159, 1490, in the estimate, it would only amount to around 15 million per local government for the basic needs of local governments.
Anyway, Mr. President, I think I have placed on record my apprehensions on this particular budget. Let me go to the proposed budget for the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund or Calamity Fund in the DILG, which also increased from 14 billion 2014 to 39 billion in 2016. May we know the basis for determining the amount proposed or requested?
I'm
How
sorry.
did you come out of it?
They don't have an end-dream fund, Mr. President. The end-dream fund is lodged in the DBM, and that is upon the approval of the President. But the DILG secretary is a member of the council, but he does not hold any fund insofar as the end-dream fund is concerned.
We will look for it. Mr. President, may I have a 1-minute suspension?
May request. It is possible. End-dream fund? Wala.
Calamity
May request
fund?
sa end-dream.
Entry na calamity fund.
Baka QRF. Wala rin QRF. Dapat bigyan ko kayo ng QRF. O pulis na lang. Tama, pulis at saka. Ha? Kaya meron na kayo ng ganyan. I'm ready to resume. I'll explain that. Yeah. I think you're referring, Mr. President, to the fund that was transferred from the NDREAM fund to the DILG. The nature of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Fund, previously called, before the NDREAM law was enacted, as a calamity fund, was it was a response mechanism or funding to help communities that have been besieged by disasters or damaged. Now, post-Yolanda, there was a downloading from the NDREAM fund to the DILG in the amount of 2.4 billion. But this is from the NDREAM fund, and this was for repair of municipal halls and public markets and civic centers which were damaged, partially damaged by Yolanda. The nature of NDREAM, Mr. President, is any agency can actually request. In fact, during my hearing 2 weeks ago, there was one agency, Nia, I think, the lady head. She said to Yusek Pama, "Uy, meron akong pending na request sa'yo sa NDREAM fund for irrigation, etc. But this needs clearance and approval by the President. So it's not a fund that is regularly lodged in any agency, but they can actually draw from the NDREAM fund, but there's a very strict process of accessing these funds."
All right, then let me move on, Mr. President. This concern is, I think, is important to you. You have a locally funded project, Environmental Protection Enhancing LGU Capacity on Climate Change Adaptation and DRM Framework. It is no longer included in your new appropriation proposal for 2016, but it used to be there. The project received 76 million each in 2014 and 2015. May we know why it is no longer in the budget? Ito yung mga importanteng project eh.
Yes. That's very important. I did not even see that, Mr. President, and I would support that it be continued in 2016. I am informed that it is still there, but they moved it to the Local Government Academy. And the Local Government Academy has the same amount? It has the same amount. Linipat lang po. It used to be from the OSEC. I believe it is the LGA that will be more competent to teach climate change, adaptation, mitigation, etc. So it's still there under the Local Government Academy. But they should increase that. Why is it only 76 million?
Ba marami kang pagkukunan doon sa 15 billion, Mr. President.
What's the 15 billion?
Doon sa increase, doon sa LGSF.
We cannot touch that.
Kumurot ka ng konti, lagay mo doon sa climate change.
That was a product of consultations. Kumurot ko ng konti, may masasaktan ng marami sa mga nag-aantay na ng pondong nanggaling doon. Kasi hindi yung lump sum, hindi po yung lump sum fund eh. Nakalinya eh. It's there, no? You can show them.
1,500 municipalities, Madam President.
But everyone is
Kalahati
waiting.
doon, mayaman na. Na municipalities, ang dami.
Napangako eh. Remember, nag-usap, nagkonsultasyon, nagproseso, pinangako, line item, makita mo, tatanggalan. Mag-aantay yung mga taong yun.
Anyway, it's up to you. You're chairman of the Committee on Finance. That is merely a suggestion. All right. What is the... Going to the PNP, what is the target police to citizen ratio in the country for 2016?
Police to citizen ratio. What's the present and what's the ideal? Dito kayo, Chief. Ano? Saan dito kayo? Saan ang isa? Oo, okay, saan dyan? Saan dyan? Parang in the center. No. Police to population ratio. Ito ba 1 is to 803? Ano yun? What's projected, the present? What is the present? The present police to population ratio is 1 is to 673 as of June of this year, Mr. President. And the target for next year is 1 is to 550. What is the ideal? The
1 is to
ideal is 1 is to
500 is the
500.
ideal, right? Yeah.
Well,
When do you think can the country hit the ideal ratio?
1 to 550 already next year. What would it take by 2020? Because you're only given how many? 10,000 additional police every year. What if we add all the? Is it a matter of giving you the budget or a matter of DBM approving the positions? The positions. Yes. In 4 years, Mr. President, by 2020, the ideal would be reached.
Hopefully in 2020.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Our population by then would have been 100 million, 111 million. And with the 10,000 a year additional to the police force, they would have 222,000, correct? Yes, by then. And the ratio would have been 1 is to 500, which is the ideal as of now.
All right. May we know if the current budget of the DILG of PNP already includes the proposal for a 24/7 direct national emergency hotline? Pretty much like the 9/11 hotline in the United States. Tagal na natin pinag-uusapan yan. Tagal na natin hinihiling yan.
Ano po yun?
Baka sakaling under Director General Rick Marquez,
Anong tanong?
it will be possible. The
Hotline.
24/7 direct national emergency hotline.
Dapat naman may hotline kayo. May hotline.
Parang 911. Kasama na ba dyan sa budget nyo ngayon ng BILG?
Meron kayong hotline? Police hotline? Wala. There's a 117 hotline. Can you call the hotline? Let's see how it answers.
Nationwide na ba yan?
Can you call the hotline? Let's see how they answer.
Nationwide naman yung 117, di pa?
Sige. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Because it will run conflict with 117.
Please.
Hindi na po ba niya?
Aha. They had... No. Hindi pwedeng cellphone?
Ito yung 118.
How do you call a 117 from a cell phone? 117.
117 lang.
Sabi niya hindi pwedeng sa cellphone. Hindi naman pwedeng hindi sa cellphone. Emergency number yun. Oh, incorrect. Ba't ganun? Ha?
Dalawang taon na yan eh. Request natin.
Ha?
It should be prioritized in your budget.
Yes.
Itong mga ganitong klaseng dapat pinagkakagastusan natin. A 24/7 National Emergency Hotline.
What is the police to population ratio now?
Emergency hotline na tinanong mo, police ratio.
Because he's asking me, no, I'm just checking on you because we're in the budget hearing. I wanted to check if there's somebody answering the 117 hotline, okay? This is Senator Legarda. Thank you very much.
All right.
So I can call 117 anytime for any emergency, medical or otherwise, right? Okay. What do you do after an emergency? Do you have ambulances? Do you have police? How soon will a police come to the site of a crime? 5 to 7 minutes. Okay.
National na yan.
National. Is this national or national or national?
National na yan, okay.
Okay.
Nasa budget mo na yan, Brad.
Wargaming. Wala akong emergency
Na- dito, sa present budget, nandiyan na yan. DILG.
fund right now. Okay?
DILG, not PNP.
Now. Okay? Ayoko yung mga nandito kasama ko. Magpadala kayo. 5 minutes. Titignan ko kung may darating. Okay. Thank you. 5 to 7 minutes. I'll count from now. Thank you. I'll count 5 to 7 minutes.
So how much is your budget?
We actually conducted a study for national hotline 118, but it didn't approve ng BBM dahil nga it will run in conflict with
Okay.
basically 42 million yung doon yun kasi in one of the hearing na napag-usapan na yun.
Just to clarify, that is a DILG, not the police hotline. In fact, there's a national emergency hotline of 118 by the PNP. It was disapproved by
Huh?
DBM.
Why?
Bakit ba? Dinasapprove. Because they said it will run in conflict with the 117 hotline of the DILG. They just want to improve the 117.
All right.
And the,
How much is your
allocation-
budget for the
How much is the
117?
118? 33 million lang eh. For the police hotline?
Eh, ba't ganun?
No, the 117 is 33 million. But your proposal of 118 is how much? What is the difference of the 117 and the 118? Purely police. No, I want to make it amended. I will give it to you.
If you go into something na kailangan na rin yung fire so if you don't suppose it police hotline, it should be a national
Do you have the plan? Ready?
police na rin bumangga doon. Or if you go into something na
No. Kung i-approve ba namin yan, ay handa kayo. 43 million? Amendment. Sige. Oh, pero sabi niya, amendment sa DILG na matapos yun. Lahat ng tanong, wala kami po siya. Okay, it's very clear, Mr. President. The 117 I called is a DILG hotline. And the 118 proposal, which was not approved by DBM, was just a police hotline, meaning police emergency. Ito po, mismong may manhole, may tulo dito. Ako'y nadapa. Masakit ang aking tiyan. Ganun po. Sa DILG, lahat ng pangyayari ay meron daw darating. Tignan natin, meron man darating sa ganun kasimple. Yung mga, lahat ng problema nyo sa barangay, pwedeng idulog sa DILG hotline.
There's a saying,
Oh.
two heads are better than one. Why not approve the 118
There's
for
a 40
PNP?
million allocation for the 118 police hotline. Would you want to make that your amendment?
Yes, of course.
Okay. We will
I
take
will
out from the
propose that.
National Greening Program.
As a matter of fact, hindi, 1 billion for pills and condoms eh. We can take part of that and additional funding to the PNP AIDSOT. I understand you have a new one, anti-illegal drugs group.
Oo. Okay. Ikaw pala ang ulo nito. They say that you are the author of this, you and Senator Poe. Because during the
yes.
hearing, you were asking about this. That's why they came up with this study. But
Correct.
they proposed it in the NEP. It was not approved.
That's why I was asking and looking for it in your budget
So now we will approve it as your amendment.
All right,
Okay. Thank
sure.
you.
And then,
Either from condoms or from...
IUD, because the Supreme Court ruled that it's not allowed. It should not be allowed. There's a TRO presently. Anyway, paano kung walang load? Hindi makatawag ng 117? Dapat yung emergency hotline, pwedeng tawagan kahit walang load.
Oo, tama. Tama. Paano ba yun?
Di ba?
service provider
Tama. Tama ka.
I suggest that your 118 should be like that. You make coordinations with the telcos, ha? Pag dumayan lang 118,
Walang charge.
kahit walang load.
Tama.
Di ba? Anyway, traceable eh.
Tama,
Kaya
tama.
hindi basta-basta sila magluloko. Pag nagluloko, gawin nyo yung katulad sa Amerika. In the United States, pagka merong false alarm, bayad.
Yes, tama.
Sinisingil.
Yes, you're correct.
Oo.
Sige.
Kaya ayaw nila nung dumayan ng 911 ng hindi emergency talaga dahil masisingil sila. Alright. So, let's find out from Director General how much they would need for that 118 to be fully operational nationwide 24/7. Now, just one final point, Mr. President. Oh, by the way, make sure that it can be called even if there is no load. Right, just one final point. The Bureau of Fire Protection is tasked to establish one fire station in each local government unit. How far are we from this?
Do you have fire stations in every LGU? 520. 520 local governments, Mr. President, still do not have fire stations.
Yun na lang ang kulang. In your 2016 budget, are you going to cover that?
In the 2016, how many? In the 2016 budget, everybody will be covered.
All right.
All
Very good.
municipalities.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you
I
for
have
your
no
very
further-
enlightened interventions and for your 118 project, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Senator Soto. Is there any other member of the chamber who would wish to avail of the period of interpellation? Senator Juan Ponce Enrile is recognized. Senator Enrile.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the distinguished sponsor, care to answer some questions?
Yes, of course, Mr. President, from the Minority Leader.
The mandate of the DILG are three: local governance, peace and order, and public safety. I think the Assistant Minority Floor Leader has sufficiently covered local governance and public safety. So I will try to see if I could cover peace and order. And I would like to start with 44 lives lost in Mama Sapano. Now, what has been done by the Philippine National Police to exact justice and to put a closure to the case of the 44 hapless soldiers who lost their lives in Mama Sapano. The impression that I got in talking to the survivors is that they were left to die in Mama Sapano. That is what happened. So I would like to find out from the organization, first, what have you done to the to honor those 44 who perished in that battle?
Given them special promotion, given them medals, and also sort of give yung isa namatay ng medal of valor, ito ba may resolution? So not only were they promoted for the police, they were also given
For the survivors, yeah.
ito yung namatay ng 44.
Ito yung namatay.
Did you give them any medal at all?
Yes, Mr. President.
A
I was just about,
recognition plaque?
yes, I was just about to read it into the record. Into the special meritorious promotion of the 44
Meritorious promotion.
Yes,
Okay.
and the medalya ng katapangan, upgraded to medalya ng
gallantry.
kabayanihan, resolution forwarded to NAPOCOM, and the Medal of Valor, posthumous, to Inspector Tabdi and PO2 Sempron.
Now, but how about the 13 survivors? Where are they now? Are they promoted also and redeployed in the field?
They were also promoted on those who opted to, instead of, kasi some of them, instead of availing for instead of heroism, medalya ng kabayan.
They were also given medals. The 13. The 13 also, Mr. President, were recipients of the meritorious promotion and medals.
How about the commander? Why is he under charge? General Napeñas.
Senatorial candidate. As we know, Mr. President, he has a case in the Ombudsman.
What case is that?
Is he not a candidate?
Yes, for the
What is his what is Napeñas here? Oh, violation of Section 3 of RA 3019,
What is that?
Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act.
What was the anti-graft
I have
done
no
by the
idea, Mr. President.
huh?
And grave misconduct.
For obeying his commander in chief,
And neglect of
his
duty.
president, his chief
Yes, yeah. This is
chief
the-
executive
these
officer of Republic Incorporated.
Yeah.
He was charged for misconduct. My
These
God.
are ombudsman cases, Mr. President. There are 2 admin cases, grave misconduct and neglect of duty, and 1 is violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. I'm sorry, I am not competent to answer you the basis of the ombudsman cases.
But anyway, what is the level? What is the condition of law and order in the country? This morning, I read in the papers that a judge was shot in Samar. Recently, a judge was shot in Malolos. This morning, we discussed about the Lumads in Mindanao. And there are repeated killings of Lumads. And when I asked during the deliberation of the budget of the Commission on Human Rights, CHR, if they have taken this up with any senior or member of the cabinet, and they said yes, who they pointed to the incumbent secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Government. First, is that true, Mr. Secretary, that they consulted you on this?
There was a call and coordination made between the Commission on Human Rights, Chair Gascon, and Secretary Sarmiento so that they could proceed to the place where there was an investigation on the Lumad killings.
Why can you not stop this? Can you really stop this or not? With your entire organization and with your huge budget, I ask you point blank, can you stop this killing and in what time frame?
Yeah, that's a valid question. Why can't you stop it? Why was there no police presence? Why can't you stop it? The police station is 23 kilometers away from Alcadev in Jatagon.
What's that?
Mr. President, the nearest police station, which is a small one, in away from Alcadev, the Lumad Center is 23 kilometers away from the nearest.
20 kilometers?
23 kilometers away.
And what is the pertinence of the 20 kilometers?
Ibig po nilang sabihin ay kaya kayo walang presence nung panahong yun na nangyari yun.
Huh?
Yeah, okay. Yes, yes. What they're saying is that it is a conflict area and the PNP has no presence there and they have ceded the responsibility to the AFP to handle the very sensitive and high-risk area.
My goodness.
They support the AFP, but the AFP is the one taking the lead in the peacekeeping operations in that area in Jatagon because they claim it is an area that is that is populated by the national, by the NPAs.
We were told that this are not. Where is this area that you're discussing?
This is the site, the school, Alcadev, kung saan po pinatay yung mga lumad, yung executive director po.
According to the Commission on Human Rights this morning, this is happening in several provinces.
But it is true.
Bukidnon,
That's true. It's not just in Alcadev.
Surigao del Sur, Surigao del Norte, in Agusan del Sur, in Compostela Valley, and several others. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about the school?
No, we were referring to the Lumad killings that you asked first.
No, I'm
but
talking
I agree
about the
with you.
killings of Lumads.
Not specifically the Alcadev, the most recent one. But you are correct
I'm
in
talking
saying
of a general situation of law and order. Are you capable of handling law and order in the country?
May I request my colleagues to address the chair?
Yes.
May I just request?
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Mr. President, first I was addressing the main issue of the Lumad killings in Alcadev in Jatagon. But I agree with you that there are abuses, displacement, and killings of Lumads, not only in Jatagon, which was in the headlines for several weeks in the past months, but in many areas of Mindanao.
But I'm
And your question is, are they capable of containing or preventing such atrocities against our indigenous peoples in Mindanao, or whom we call the Lumads? And the answer is, of course, they will say yes. But I believe that it is a great challenge because in these areas, it is not just police effort, but the AFP, like the case of Alcadev, took the lead because it is an area where the NPAs have proliferated. And so I will answer for them. And I know they will say yes, but it's difficult. It is a great challenge for the police to contain this. Because also, there have been paramilitary forces that have gained access to guns, firearms, ammunition, etc., who are also funded both by during their time when they were created, and even funded by private interests to perpetuate perhaps illegal activities. And so I asked the same question to the police as well, just like the minority leader is asking, are you able to contain and prevent such lumad killings from happening?
Now,
I join you in your questions, Mr. Minority Leader, because that's my advocacy, and I've been asking that same question. So I will not cover up and say, yes, kaya nila, because I see the fact that it continues to happen. That means that there is a breakdown in law and order, and that there is a problem. Now, how do we solve the problem? I don't think the 2016 budget is the solution. I don't think by giving them a higher budget. I would like to hear from them as well. We know that the mandate does not solely rest on them. It should be an AFP PNP effort. We cannot blame them solely, because it should be a joint effort of the armed forces and the Philippine National Police.
that is the mandate of the DILG. It's written even in your budget paper.
Yes, it's
and I'm
DILG.
asking them if they are capable to fulfill their mandate. If they cannot fulfill their mandate, what is the cause of non-fulfillment of that mandate? We're talking of budget now, allocation of resources to perform duties.
Yes. Yes, the DILG acknowledges that it is their mandate. There is a stronger, more robust cooperation because of all these killings between the DILG and the DND to win the peace. An operation not to wipe out the Lumads, but actually to protect them from all these forces who have continuously abused them, and that is where they're going. An operation allegedly to win the peace. In how?
I ask a point, Mr. President. I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask you, General Marquez, a pointed question. What is your force level? And is that force level not enough to contain this problem in Mindanao?
How do you contain it?
The question is, what is the force level, and is that force level enough to contain the problem in Mindanao?
What's your force level there? How many? Strength, police strength. They, admittedly, Mr. President, the police are not alone in their effort, because it is a joint cooperation of the DND and the DILG and the DND, the AFP. What is your force level in Mindanao?
You know, Madam Chair, Mr. President, thank you for your answer, but I'm not convinced. This organization was under me when I was in the Department of Defense for 17 years. And at that time, they're far less than the present force level. But we contained every bit of law and order problem in the country. What is the difference between that organization then and this organization now?
According to PNP Chief Marquez, based on 8551, Republic Act 8551, it is not only solely the DILG and the PNP, but the DND and the AFP that have joint cooperation and forces to maintain the internal security, with the AFP as the lead, based on this RA he is mentioning, 8551. Because my understanding is it's the police that handles internal security, and the AFP is for external security. So law and order is the primary responsibility of the police. Why did it change? Diba? External.
Mr. President,
Anyway.
the AFP has no police power. The one that carries the police power of the state is this organization.
Yeah, but regardless, we cannot pass on the responsibility.
And that's why it is their duty to maintain law and order inside the country.
Yeah, but the question is, what is your force level in?
We are talking of their budget now, and this is the moment.
If
if
34,000
a police
men and women-
organization of a country cannot maintain law and order, then what is it? A burden to the people of this country without capability to maintain law and order?
Mr. President, they have 34,000 men and women in Mindanao, if you're asking the force level.
These are all excuses.
Mr. President, I am with you in your frustration, in your anger even, on the abuse and the useless, senseless killings of Lumads in Mindanao. And I wish that they would have a clear-cut program on how they could collaborate with the AFP and with the local governments to protect our Lumads.
Why should we then, and I raise this question as a duly elected representative of the sovereign people of this country, why should we spend money for an organization that cannot maintain law and order in this land?
Because, Mr. President, doing otherwise would mean lawlessness. What we need to do is to fully support them, to be able to know the problem better and to be able to help them. They cannot do it alone, single-handedly, and a better cooperation with the AFP, understanding the culture of the Lumads, finding out who are behind these paramilitary forces who have the guns, who have acted like goons, who kill people and behead people in broad daylight in front of their families. They must be apprehended. And yes, we must demand that justice must be given to all the perpetrators of the Lumad killings, but not giving a budget to the police force would just create more lawlessness in this country.
These verbalisms are meaningless to me. I'm not saying this to brag, but I was made, not by choice, but I was made to handle the Organization for Security of the Country on February 10, 1970. And at that time, there is no martial law yet. At that time, the problem of Mindanao is this one. At that time, the force level of the police, or Philippine Constabulary, was only about a little less than 20,000. And we had this problem, but we were able to contain it. Why? It's a question of leadership. If you're not ready to die for the country, then you will have anarchy, no?
Clearly, Mr. President, this is a whole of government effort. We need those murderers to be brought to justice soon so that people will see, and the other paramilitary forces who are out there will see that there's justice that can be served. And they need the support with the AFP because based on their joint forces, they're only a support team to the AFP. And then the local governments must also cooperate. Yes, there's a crisis, but I asked them to form a task force, a group, if it's not yet been formed. You already have formed that?
Who is the coordinating body that can coordinate the work of the AFP and the PNP to maintain order in this republic?
Existing memorandum agreement between the DILG and the DNP.
Okay, kasi nangyari lang yun. Sino ang point person sa DNP? Sino ang point person? May memorandum. Ilang beses na nag-meeting. Sino ang point person? Ano yung roadmap? Patingin ng kopya ng memorandum. They say, Mr. President, that there has been a memorandum of agreement between the DND and the PNP, the ILG, last August, and there are point persons. Don't ask me the output.
What is the total number of uniformed personnel of the government, AFP and PNP?
Kayo, ilang total? 160.
Madam Chair.
Kayo, police. There are 160,000 police force, and the AFP would be what?
So we are talking here of a manpower of, Mr. President, we are talking here of a manpower of less than 400,000. And we cannot contain the problem of Mindanao. We finger point kung sino ang gagawa ng trabaho. I ask for the only person that can coordinate this. If the two cabinet members cannot coordinate, the two heads of the organization, the chief of staff, and the head director general of the PNP cannot coordinate, who else can coordinate? So we give up.
There are mechanisms for coordination. Joint Peace and Security Coordinating Center.
Do you have any intelligence information about people who are doing this?
It's a matter of fact, you know, yung issue ng warrant of arrest na sa there is a joint task force that's running.
Mr. President, the joint task force between the DND and the DILG have already issued a joint. There's already I believe there's already an arrest warrant for the suspects in the Lumad killings in Alcadev, in Surigao, and this is a result of the joint task force. They continue to meet.
Those are Mr. President, thank you. Madam Chair, those are the actors in a particular incident. But who are behind it? Do we know?
Who are behind the killings?
Yes, this operation. This is an operation. If it's a continuous killing, somebody is
Sino ba? Paramilitar.
masterminding it.
The threat assessment, Mr. President, and some confidential matters can be sent to you by today.
Why? What's so secret about the information? It concerns the life of this nation. Come on. Mr. President, may I be favored with a statement about
They're still discussing. I apologize. I cannot surmise an answer based on what I know. I would like an official answer from the PNP organization, Mr. President. So I have to wait. They are still discussing.
With the permission of the chamber, 1 minute recess.
investigation natin with Luma, meron na mga kakaibang incident sa
Oo, saan dito? Hindi alam ko na ito. Ito yung hinahanap ko. Okay. Ready to resume, Mr. President?
Session is resumed.
Based on the information, Mr. President, the members of the Magahat Bagani group, which we discussed here on the floor before, have identified, the police have identified members of this group. The names are Bobby Tejero, Loloy Tejero, Gareto Laino, and they were the ones who perpetrated the Dastardi acts in Alcadev, Mr. President, that resulted in the death of the Alcadev director Samarca and the chairman Campos and the tribal chieftain. They are at large, but arrest warrants have been issued, and there's a manhunt for these 3 people. According to the PNP, these were allies of the paramilitary forces in that area.
Are they Ilocanos, Cebuanos, Ilonggos,
They're also Lumans. So they're from
Warais,
They're according to the PNP.
Boholanos?
According to the PNP, Mr. President, they're also Lumads from Mindanao.
What tribe?
What tribe? What IP group? They're not sure. They're also Lumads from Mindanao. And are they Bilaan, Manobo? Manobo? I don't want to name the group because it would be unfair. They suspect Manobo, but I am not certain. It is not with certainty.
Is this an intertribal conflict? And if so,
Is it intertribal?
why?
I don't want to say that. Well, they have their conclusions which I don't agree with, so I don't want it to come from me. Because I don't think it is an intertribal, they say it is an intertribal rivalry which I do not agree with, so I do not want to mouth something I do not believe in. And they also say that it is a fight over the resources there because it is rich in mines. Again, I'm not certain that is the case.
That is, mining area is in North Davao, di ba?
But this is in Surigao.
The Walwal area.
Norte Sur. No, this is Surigao.
What kind of mining are we talking? Gold or nickel?
What are the mines in that area?
Nickel is in Surigao del Sur, del Norte and del Sur.
What are the mines in that area? They're not certain, Mr. President, but they say it could be. These are all speculations. It could be. Maybe we should give him a copy of this report. How recent is this report? I have a long report on the actions taken on the Lumad killings. I could kindly give it to you, Mr. President, and
No, I want it to be recorded so that we have a memorial of the performance of the organization that we are allocating money out of the tax pay of the people.
Well, they have here the facts of the case, which we already know. They claim that the arrest warrants are against these three people I already mentioned. They have the results of the investigation, and a joint task force of the AFP PNP was formed to expedite the arrest of the suspects in the Alcadev case. There were dialogues and partnerships for continued peace in the area, for the protection of the Lumads. Task Force Bangkao is the name of the task force that was created, and they are on full alert, and they have strengthened their combined efforts with the AFP, and they have intensified police operations. They have deployed special operations teams. They've activated the Surigao del Sur police tracker teams. They have checkpoints for the possible apprehension, Mr. President, of the perpetrators. And cases of multiple murder, arson, robbery, etc. were filed against these personages. And there are also other updates here on other Lumad-related issues. As of November 23, the execution of the Manobo mayor is also here, and what they have done, apart from the Alcadev killing of Samarca, the director.
Is the killing of the mayor mentioned the work of those three persons identified?
Iba po yung sa Manobo mayor po. That is a different case, Mr. President. The Alcadev of Samarca is different from the Manobo mayor Dario Otasa. It's in a different, it is in Loreto, in Agusan del Sur, because Alcadev is in Yatagon, in Surigao del Sur. In fact, Senator T.G. Gingona had conducted a hearing based on the resolution I and some other of our colleagues filed in the aftermath of that incident, because the daughter of Samarca came to me here a few days after her father was brutally killed, and she told me exactly what they did, what the people did. They were brought out early in the morning at 4 a.m. to a basketball court in full view of the townspeople. Humiga sila at pinagpapatay. The child was here. They came to me. So I was so affected, and I filed the resolution. I could not go to Surigao. I asked Senator T.G. to chair the committee because it was initially referred to my committee.
Three people supposedly having committed a crime, and 180,000 manpower of the police, and we cannot find them in the Republic. Well, if that is the degree of efficiency of our organization, I leave it to my colleague whether it is worth the money of the people to support an organization with that kind of efficiency. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minority Leader.
Thank you, Senator Enrile. Majority Leader. Senator Ejercito, I'm sorry, Ejercito is recognized.
President, I would
Yes,
just
okay.
like...
Yes,
it's all
before
right. I would just
Senator
like to
Ejercito.
reiterate... Yes,
Yes, Senator Soto.
just reiterate the request of Senator Legarda, the chairman, that the senators be furnished copies of the recipients of the LGSF.
Duly noted, the Senator Legarda, the request of the report needed, the report promised to be furnished. Each senator is being reiterated by Senator Soto.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. Will the distinguished sponsor be willing to answer some queries?
Yes, of course, from the gentleman from San Juan.
Thank you. Thank you, distinguished sponsor. First of all, I'd like to congratulate, Mr. President, the DILG, and likewise, of course, the Philippine National Police for a very successful and very peaceful APEC, no? That no untoward incident took place, and this definitely put the Philippines on the map. So I'd like to congratulate the Philippine National Police for the job well done for securing 21 heads of state. In connection to this, Madam Chair, with what happened in France, in Mali last week, terrorism is a clear and present danger that we are now facing. And I just like to ask, how prepared is the DILG, particularly the Philippine National Police, in facing this terrorism in case there would be an attack or in case there would be a situation that would happen in our country? Are we prepared?
Terrorism is the business of the Anti-Terrorism Council, the 20 pieces
Where the
we have a role, studying a role,
yeah. Or
and we need siguro magiging
sinong kasama ng Anti-Terrorism Council? AFP rin. Nika, the intelligence agencies. Yes. Clearly, the PNP cannot do it alone because the Anti-Terrorism Council is responsible for all operations against any form of terrorism. The PNP is a part of that cooperative effort, which should include the AFP and the intelligence communities of government, including the NICA, Mr. President. The Office of the Executive Secretary, the PAOKTF, is part of it. Yes. But we acknowledge your comments on the successful holding of the APEC. And yes, even the most progressive country in the world, France, is victim to terrorist attacks, and terrorism could happen anywhere, and we are very blessed that we were able to do that without a hitch, except for the monstrous traffic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But after APEC, all the efforts, and I congratulate, even if I come from the minority, I congratulate the President and all the organizers for a very successful APEC. And of course, being the Chair of the Economic Affairs, Madam Chair, I'm also concerned that after all of these efforts, all of these might all go to waste if we are not able to maintain a climate that is conducive for business to flourish. Because one of the main goals of hosting such an event is for us to be able to entice and invite investors to come in the country. So peace and order is very vital in for us to be able to achieve inclusive growth. So that is my concern, Madam Chair. That is why I asked. That in case we cannot take chances at this time. No? In case, for example, there is a terrorist attack that happens in this situation, I just like to ask Madam Chair if the PNP, what measures have been taken? Are we ready for such an event? Are there any anti-terrorism drills, trainings that are happening for special units as of the present?
The drills happen with the special unit of the AFP also.
Yes, drills continue with the PNP SAF, the Special Action Force, but even with the special forces of the AFP, drills are continuing. They actually have a long list of requests in my office, Mr. President, and part of this would be for Special Action Force anti-terrorism activities. I will no longer detail what they've requested, which we're partially granting to the PNP, so that the terrorists who are listening will not know that they will be equipped with this, which we are giving in their budget.
No, but we have also, Madam Chair, Mr. President, we have to let them know that we are equipping them, that this would serve as a deterrent for them not to try anything anymore. No? That will be a good, we have to let them know that we will be investing so much to buy anti-terrorism, whether firearms, equipment, assets. Does this budget, Madam Chair, include anti-terrorism equipment and firearms? And if so, I would be willing to suggest and make amendments and add, if necessary, because of what is happening, Madam Chair, Mr. President, in the world right now. Again, I would reiterate that this is a clear and present danger that we are facing right now. And as Chair of the Economic Affairs, we cannot allow terrorists to disrupt whatever investments, whatever gains that we have had in the past few years.
I agree with you 100% and appreciate your interventions in that regard. I am told that in their budget, yes, the arms needed and the support needed for their anti-terrorism activities are there. Of course, they could have a better long wish list. In fact, they've given me a 2.7 billion anti-crime proposal. I couldn't find the whole thing, but we compromised by certain equipment which they needed. And I suggested that they could probably include it in the NEP of 2017.
We have particulars tuloy for anti-terrorism.
Yes, dapat po sabihin to, yes. They have anti-terrorism equipment, tactical vest, Kevlar, enhanced combat helmet, night vision goggles, thermal imaging, binoculars, rappelling ropes, etc. So these are part of it. And the new rifles, we granted this, right? Yes. They actually wrote me and asked me for rifles for the Special Action Force, which I immediately granted as chair. And in barracks ba? Pinibigyan ko rin yan.
We are repairing the 3 helicopters na ginagamit sa
Okay.
for rapid deployment.
Okay. They're also repairing their helicopters. There are no air assets.
Yes,
Senator
I would be,
JB mentioned that to me before the interpellation that they don't have air assets.
yes, Madam Chair. In fact,
They
I
make
will.
sure when you repair it, it's safe. We don't want to lose our man.
Likewise, Madam Chair, before I go into that, no, because of the situation right now, if I may propose to the Chief PNP and likewise the AG Secretary is here to organize already anti-terrorism units, no, in the metropolis. Well, of course, NCR, Davao probably, Cebu, just to make sure, no, and probably to serve as a deterrent for any groups or organization who would want to try. At least they would know that we are prepared. If needed, for us to amend the budget and to add for this special purpose, then I guess we will be supportive of that.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. President, I am told that 1 battalion in the Special Action Force is a anti-terrorism unit. Perhaps you would, you could probably include in a special provision of the DILG PNP budget that to strengthen anti-terrorism drills and activities. Magandang special provision yun, no? To focus on anti-terrorism. Perhaps you could help craft.
Madam Chair,
that.
if I may ask, if can you ask the Chief PNP if these anti-terrorism units, where are they stationed? Are they just in the Metro Manila or the key cities? They should be permanently assigned in the metropolis.
They're in Metro Manila, Mr. President.
I think they should also be. There should be also a unit in Davao, Cebu, and other metropolis, no, the other key cities.
Last year, pero hindi na-approve ang so it will-
Oh, they have a request for some enhancement so that there could be anti-terrorism units in other regions, but it was not approved. Why don't you give us what was not approved, and we will resubmit to the Finance Committee and to Senator JV today, just like they're asking for the BUB list as well.
Okay, yung ating self-enhancement program.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. President. If I'm willing to introduce amendments, and if possible, to augment the request, no, of the Philippine National Police for us to be able to station anti-terrorism units all over the country, not only Metro Manila. Of course, Metro Manila will be the center, but of course, the other metropolis, no, Zamboanga, Davao,
May facing
Yes.
even Cagayan de Oro, Iloilo, Cebu. All of these areas also need anti-terrorism units. And if possible, Madam Chair, probably these key cities have their own special weapons and tactics or SWAT. Probably they can already be trained for anti-terrorism efforts already.
Actually, maganda yung initiative mo, Senator JV. Maganda magkaroon pa ng LGU training for anti-terrorism. Just like I've mainstreamed climate and DRR, yung sa'yo, we mainstream anti-terrorism training even for laymen and civilians. So meron silang listahan po dito ng Force Support Battalion, Light Armor Battalion, SAF training, etc., air units, their requests for anti-terrorism. Lahat ba ito na nakasama sa budget mo?
hindi mo ito nakasama.
Madam Chair, I would be willing to again sponsor and make amendments and to augment the budgetary request, especially for establishment of anti-terrorism units, just like climate change, just like these calamities, no, that are happening right now. Terrorism is a man-made calamity that we really have to pay attention to. Next item, Mr. President, Madam Chair, as you mentioned, no, I'd like to ask at present, from my information, the Philippine National Police at the moment has no air assets. Not even one is flying. So,
You're repairing your choppers.
not even one. So, Madam Chair, Mr. President, it's sad to note that we don't even have an eye in the sky, so to speak. No? So,
They're repairing their helicopters. How old are your helicopters? 18 years. Wow. Is it safe to repair an 18-year chopper? Or just put it in the junkyard?
In 1987, Sikorsky of the Air Force still flying.
Nakatakot. Kaya nga, tayo mababagsak.
Madam Chair, if I may help you, no, I think I know their assets. You have 3 Eurocopters, no, that are old, but needs to be, kasi ano po yun, Madam, yung choppers, even if you do not use up the time, 3,000 hours before overhaul, yung TBO na tinatawag, meron din siyang oras, no, meron siyang years. When it reaches 12 or 15 years, mandatory po yun. It has to be overhauled, all the parts need to be replaced. And for the Eurocopter, you have 3, no? And then also yung controversial R44 that were bought, hindi brand new, brand used, no? Used ito. But they are now, the 2 R44s have also been, kumbaga umabot na rin sa time niya to be overhauled. But it is also not being used because it is an evidence, I believe, in the ombudsman case against the former first gentleman.
The diploma is to repair the Eurocopter.
Madam Chair, Mr. President, with the 3 Eurocopters, I also did some research. We would need about $800,000 per unit, no, to repair. Magiging parang brand new na yun. New rotors, new avionics, new engine. So that's $800,000, and that is only 1/3 of the price of a brand new one. But if you use it, parang it's good as new. So for the 3 Eurocopters that the Philippine National Police has, we would only need about $800,000 times 3. That's about $24 million. So that's about magkano? 2.4 million dollars, no? So that's a little about 100 million. Mahina ako sa math, kaya nga hindi ako nag-ano eh. Patulungan niyo na ako. Magkano yan? 2.4 million dollars. Ito pala, matematiko. 2.4 million dollars. 102 million pesos. Ilagay na ho natin sa $900,000, no, to make sure. That would only amount to 126 million, Madam Chair, Mr. President. That's for the 3 Eurocopters. Doon po sa R44, yung maliliit na kung sakasakali, to overhaul and refurbish will cost about $220,000, no? Back to zero na to, bagong engine, bagong rotors, lahat. So para rebrand new. We have 2 units, GPNP, 2 unit yung R44 existing, no? Yung isa nag-crash na, so 2 na lang. So that's about 20 million. No? Madam Chair, Mr. President, all we need is about 140 million, and we would have air assets already. And I would say that this would be very vital in our quest to have a very conducive and a peaceful atmosphere for business to flourish. No? Kailangan yan. Sinasabi kasi noon, kaya daw hindi pinapagawa. Madam Chair, Mr. President, it just serves as a VIP transport. I don't think so. Because the Chief PNP's mobility is hampered without an air asset. Imagine if there is a situation in Angeles City, in Nueva Ecija, in Ilocos, or wherever. How can he go there when he needs much to give attention right away? Magkokotse sila ilang oras? 8 hours. Magko-commercial flight. You'll have 2 hours in the airport waiting and may traffic pa. About 4 hours. By the time that CPNP gets to the problem area, mga 5 oras na. Diba? So, Madam Chair, I would like to, if necessary, I would like to help and make amendments and propose amendments that our air assets, no, be given a budget so that they can be used by the Philippine National Police. I just really cannot imagine, Mr. President, that our own National Police does not have a single air asset. Parang hindi ko ho ito matake. And pasensya na ho kung ako'y nangungulit. This is the third budget season that I've been very persistent, because I know for a fact that having an air asset is very vital in our fight against terrorism and for us to be able to maintain peace and order in our country.
Perhaps even if it is not included in this year's budget, in next year's budget, you can include it in the NEP of 2017, and the next president will consider that. You'll still be here in Congress till 2000 and beyond, 19 and beyond. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But I would like to, if necessary, not naman the all, no? Probably not all, but probably even half of their assets, if we can already start refurbishing, already fixing, Mr. President.
With the permission of Senator J.V. Ejercito, I do recall that we tried to have, there was an investigation in the Senate about the air assets of PNP. Specifically, there were helicopters which were purchased by PNP as brand new when in fact they were segunda mano. Okay, whatever happened to those air assets?
I think, Mr. President, those are the 2 R-44s, no? Those are 3 on that. If I remember it right, there were 3 R-44s that were purchased, and one already had an accident. So there's only 2 remaining, and of those 3,
go ahead.
the 2 are yun po yung used. No, but used, but they were presented as brand new, but they were actually used already. Pero yung isa brand new, but that was the one that crashed, no? But as of the moment, it is also they are being used. They cannot use it because it's one of the evidences in the ombudsman case against the former first gentleman.
So it is just idle as an asset. So why are we, is that correct for the record?
Yes, Mr. President, but I'm going back though. The helicopters, Mr. President, even if you don't use it, the life of a helicopter is about, for example, an R-44, that same model, is about 12 years or 2,500 hours. So whichever comes first, Mr. President, is mandatory that you have to have it overhauled and changed. So this particular R-44, even if it was not being used, already reached its 12-year mandatory overhaul. So we need to allot some funds for it to be able to be to become airworthy.
My point is, that has been the story for several years, and I have always asked PNP to convince the Ombudsman that we should be able to use this asset and at the same time preserve it as evidence. Don't tell me that if this case will last for 10 years, you know, that asset will just remain idle. Your executive director of the NAPOLCOM is a known trial lawyer. I am sure that he can convince the Ombudsman that this asset should be should be used for needs of the PNP without prejudicing the ability to present this as evidence. Indeed, I don't believe that this cannot be done, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator Coco Pimentel.
I'm temporarily taking over because the chair needs a break, a little break. According to the chief of the PNP, the ombudsman has allowed the use of the 2 helicopters. He cannot give me the date, but a couple of months ago, in a formal order, order. But since the 2 helicopters have been not in use and in storage for 6 months, 6 years, sorry, 6 years, then they also need to be maintained and repaired, undergo maintenance before they can be used, Mr. President.
So, is the maintenance expense in the budget?
Okay.
And would you be able to utilize these air assets if there is a maintenance budget? Or is it no longer viable to repair this and operate this?
So, what are we asking? Additional funds? Are you asking, Mr. President, if the cost of the repair of these 2 helicopters we're talking about is in the budget? Is in the proposed budget?
Yes.
The answer I get is it is not in the budget specifically, but they have a 9 million peso a year budget for repair and maintenance, which they can use for the 2 helicopters.
All right. So will this be used for
which
these
is
2
not
helicopters?
enough, sir.
Sorry?
Which is not enough, according to the PNP.
And how much is needed?
I have an idea, Mr. President.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Because I did some research.
Yes.
For the 2 R-44s, 1 R-44 would cost about $220,000 to repair, overhaul, change everything, upgrade everything to make it airworthy and safe. So that's about 10 million per helicopter, Mr. President. Yung R-44.
Is it worth repairing it?
Is it worth repairing? What's the... Not worth repairing?
That's the estimate is 10 million
Yes,
pesos.
Mr. President, for the R-44. Those are the smaller helicopters. But for the Eurocopters, we need about $800,000
But
per helicopter.
these 2 helicopters are the R-Force.
R-44, that's a model, Mr.
Yes.
President.
So you need, according to Senator Ejercito, approximately 10 million pesos
Per helicopter, Mr.
per
President.
helicopter.
We have a different figure, Mr. President. The PNP estimates the repair to cost 18 million per helicopter, times 2, 36 million pesos to repair the 2 R-44 helicopters, na JV? R-44?
R-44.
R-44. But a brand new R-44 is 27 million pesos. So there must be a policy decision here,
There
Mr.
must be,
President.
Mr. President, I already did some research because a brand new would cost about 27 million. But to refurbish, to recondition, to make it airworthy, it will cost about 10 million.
10.
Yes. Mga 10 million, mga $200,000. Half the price.
Siguro half, 10 million, wala yung SOP doon, kaya mas mura.
Ano to?
Medyo mataas ang tong pats.
Hindi ko siya marinig eh. Sabi niya, bakit daw? Wait,
I think 10 million, Mr. President, is very, it's very reasonable
Yeah.
per chopper.
Yes.
And likewise, Mr. President, we need also the big one, yung Eurocopter. That would cost about $800,000.
The Eurocopter probably can be purchased
Later
a year
on.
from now.
Yes.
But for immediately, these two R44 models is an asset that can be utilized. So you need another, is that 11 million additional in order to repair the two? Is that correct? Huh?
Yes, 11 million per helicopter, Mr. President.
No. You're saying, according to Senator J.V. Ejercito, 10 million per helicopter.
Okay, 10 million, 10...
Per helicopter, no?
10 million.
And if you have 9 million that is available right now, you're short of about 11 million.
Okay. Yes, Mr. President.
Now-
To repair the two R44s, yes.
You cannot find realignment in your present budget to accommodate that 11 million?
Sa 2015 na lang. Sa 2016 yung...
Mr. President, Mr. Chair, the DLG's budget is about 120 billion and the PNP has 88 billion. So I think 20 million is not that much. No?
The answer I get, Mr. President, is for the 2015, they can no longer look for any item which they can now use to augment the item for the repair. But for the 2016, that's a big possibility
Yes, okay.
because we are starting from scratch.
In 2016 budget, I direct our technical staff to realign a portion of some other item in the 2016 budget with the PNP and place the funds necessary for the repair of these two R44 helicopters. All right? And in 2017, that's a matter for the 2017 budget for the bigger helicopters.
So, sa 2016 budget, thank you, Mr. President. What is important is that they have a budget for repair and maintenance of the air assets that we already have, which are not flying at the moment, which cannot fly at the moment.
So we augment that
yes.
by
Thank you, Mr.
realigning
President.
some of their items in their budget.
So, Mr. President, maybe it's 1 p.m. It's a good time to take a lunch break since the chair is not here anyway, Mr. President.
Are you through with your questions, Senator Ejercito?
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Acting Chair. Just like to again reiterate, thank you, Mr. President, for putting some amount, no, for us to be able to have a so-called air assets for them to be airworthy, that to be used by the Philippine
Thank
National.
you, Senator Ejercito.
Likewise, Mr. President, we need to confront. We need to confront the challenges of terrorism on air, land, and sea. PNP has to be equipped with these assets to conform to modern policing, and likewise for the officials to be able to perform their duties, and more importantly, to confront terrorism. That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. President, Senator Po wants to propound her questions. So instead of breaking for lunch, can we suspend for a few minutes just to wait for the chair to come back from her break, Mr. President?
Yes. 1 minute suspension.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed. The chair recognizes Senator Grace Poe to avail of the period of interpellation. Senator Grace Poe is recognized.
Mr. President, Madam Chairman, this won't take long because I know that many of us now are hungry and it's lunchtime. But very quickly, I salute the honest and hardworking policemen in the PNP for their work during the APEC. I know that everybody has already congratulated them, but it's really worth taking note of the security they provided our guests and our citizens as well, and also our firemen in the Bureau of Fire Protection for continuously doing their job. Of course, there are a lot to be done, but in the meantime, many are being helped, and we thank you and recognize you for that. Mr. President, just a quick question. I know earlier that it was mentioned that there would be a budget for the National Emergency Hotline, and I thank the I thank the PNP for that. My question now would be, with this amount, how much of it is actually being covered for the operations, or is a part of it still being donated by a private company?
40 million.
Or
Software and hardware, yung 42 million. Sa component na yun.
Well, thank you for that question. It's a total of 42,601,664, which will comprise of both the software and the hardware for the Hotline 118.
would that include also personnel services? And how many do you have that will be manning your telephones?
They have existing personnel who will man these phones 24/7.
And this is national or for a localized
National.
area?
This will cover national.
So if I were in Cebu, for example, and I call 117, from my cell phone, pwede na po yun?
Yes.
That's wonderful news. And who would be...
This would be 118. This will be the PNP hotline because presently there's a DILG hotline where you call 117.
So now it's 118.
It will be both because a DILG hotline of 117 would cover many concerns apart from police concerns.
Okay.
And this will be a parallel to that. I actually tried to call 117 earlier and someone very decent answered, and in perhaps 7 minutes somebody came here. 6 minutes, you timed it. In 6 minutes, somebody came from the CCP complex. The police was wondering whether there was a police here. Oh, I forgot. Well, I was here on the floor, and they said, he was the one you called. I said, okay, pakain ng tanghalian. So,
Fantastic.
So this will be a parallel to the DILG hotline. According to them, this was proposed, but this was not included in the NEP because the DBM did not approve it. Now, if you support it, apart from Senator Soto, we will include this as an amendment to the budget.
Wholeheartedly support it, and I thank you.
It is your brainchild, according to PNP
Yeah.
chief. During your hearing with Senator Soto,
With Senator Soto.
you brought this about, and that's the reason why there is this whole list of proposals, etc. And they have the complete program. I am happy that this was brought out because I did not know anything about it. Now it will be a reality. It is funded. We will find the funds for that for 42 million, and it will go on record as your amendment together with Senator Soto.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sure that many would appreciate that. My question is, if I were a caller, would you have already the technology to identify exactly where the caller is coming from? Like a GPS?
Kaya yun? In the area, would you be able to identify kung saan siya? Metro Manila, Cebu? No. Not yet.
Not yet.
They don't
This is
have-
something that we can look forward to and work on, because part of the problem, Madam Chairman, is that there are some prank calls and they will be discouraged if they know that
Yes.
the police can pinpoint exactly where they're calling
And we have
from.
the technical capability. We know that. When you're actually tracking a cell phone, we know that. The
Yeah.
NBI, even private security agencies, you give them a number, they can actually track the number and even track which address.
Exactly.
Because I've done that. I hired some private individuals to do that because there were some black operators many years ago when I was still heavily into politics like you. You know, when I was a young political star, there were those who were doing black ops against me. Now they don't mind me. They mind
Ma'am,
you.
No,
So-
your star, your star still shines very
So
brightly.
what I'm saying is that it's just to put some humor into this
Yes.
conversation. So there are actually agencies, security agencies that specialize in that. And I know because we were tracking the numbers. So ngayon nasa EDSA, nakatira dito sa ganito, sa Quezon City, nalalaman nila. NBI has the capability. But I did not use NBI. I went to a private group and we were able to track down who was doing the prank calls and the harassing calls on me and my staff.
Perhaps like you can share me that information and number. I
Imposible
think
hindi
I
alam
need
ng
it
pulisya
now.
kung alam ko yun.
Sige. Madam Chairman,
No, you're telling me kailangan daw mapasa yung batas ng prepaid SIM cards. While I am in favor of that, that is not a requirement because why was I able to do that as a civilian? I was able to track the black propers and know where they live. But they're still alive, you know. I didn't do anything.
okay. So may we request the Chief PNP to perhaps in the
Kaya
future,
nyo yan.
no, or maybe in the near future,
Dapat
very
kasama
near
yun.
future, to propose something that will be able to help us track down the actual locations, and if we need to amend and add funding for that for next year. that
So
would be-
yes, clearly that capability for GPS, if ever it's called, is it called GPS? To know the location, maybe not the identity, but at least the location.
of where the caller is
Yes.
from. Exactly, because now I know we also have caller ID. We know
Yes,
exactly who's calling.
course,
So
yes.
this technology is out there. We just need to have the implementation and, of course, the funding for it. Next question, Mr. President. With regards to the Internal Affairs Office of the PNP, my question, sir, is did you already appoint a civilian to head the Internal Affairs Office, or does it still remain under a uniformed personnel?
We have put up a vetting system. We created a committee that will vet the applicants. We will publish the availability very soon. See that?
It's a new office. There's a search committee now.
We put
They're
up a
looking.
vetting system.
There's a vetting system, and they're looking for the civilian to head that office.
When will the search committee be done with their search, and when do you think you will be able to appoint a civilian head?
Within the year, we are able to recommend to the president.
Within the year, a recommendation would have been made to the president.
Is there an age limit, sir, for the pool of applicants? Kasi marami kung internal affairs head, wisdom is very important also. And some of them, they're retired, we can get them to be involved. They don't have other commitments.
Government service.
20 years of government service.
And that's all, the requirement.
Marami. Many requirements.
Okay, but age-wise, no age limit.
Kailangan seso, eligibility, preferably a lawyer, 20 years in government service, managerial and leadership skills,
Okay. All right.
ethical, professional qualities,
Nako.
in compliance with the requirements in the hearing. Very good. They follow you.
Oh, thank you very much,
Good
sir.
soldier.
Very good soldier, if I may add.
Based on the hearing din yan.
My next question is about the ratio of policemen to the proposed ratio that we should have a policeman for every 500 individuals. Where are we now in that? And is there any proposal on the recruitment process, or do you have is the recruitment process a problem now because of the limited pool of talents that are
Yeah.
applying?
We only allow them, based on the budget and the plantilla positions, to hire 10,000 a year. The ideal would be 1:500, which will only be realizable by 2020. By next year, based on the budget, it will be 1:550. Correct? 1:550 by next year? Yes. And it would take them another 4 years to realize the 1:500 ideal target based on the 10,000 a year hiring. However, if DBM allows them to hire more, then we could speed up the 1:500 ideal ratio of police to population.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Chairman. In fact, I think that, of course, every year our population actually increases. So this will sort of stretch, and we really need to make an effort to talk to the DBM regarding this. Another question would be regarding the maintenance and other operating expenses. From what I understand, the MOOE of a particular precinct is determined by the number of police officers there. So if you have 5 police officers, then that's 5,000 a month. Am I correct? Please spell out exactly what the MOOE covers, just for the record, sir.
1,000 per capita for the police station.
Anong cover?
Except salary.
It covers everything, gasoline, travel, repairs, except communications expense.
How about electricity and water, sir?
Electricity and water is also covered.
Excluded.
Utilities. Utilities are not included.
So we're talking gasolina,
Communication.
communication.
Communications and gas.
So, ano pong nangyayari, halimbawa, sa mga munisipalidad o probinsya kung saan maliit lamang yung numero ng mga pulis sa isang presinto, sabihin na natin 5 sila doon o sabihin mo ng 10, at kailangan nila ng patrol, parang kulang yata sa 10,000 ng isang buwan, sa gasolina pa lamang. Sino po ang pumupuno ng kakulangan? Meron bang pinagkukuhanan kung nagkulang ang MOOE nila?
Ang LGU nagpupuno.
Pupuno, but ang minimum strength ng isang police station, pinakamaliit is 21 and
21 personnel.
Normally it's supported by the LGU.
The LGU fills in whatever is lacking in terms of the resources of the police station.
So do we have a proposal perhaps later on to increase that, or do you think that this...
It was submitted to the DBM.
What is the ideal MOE expense?
1,300.
There was a proposal to DBM to 1,300 per capita, but it was not approved, so it's 1,000.
306
I'm sorry?
306 million plus 300.
Based on the 1,300 per capita, the adjustment would reach 306 million pesos. It was not approved if you make it 1,300 per capita, so it's back to 1,000.
Okay. Well, it's good to take note of that. Obviously, there's really a deficiency, but considering we are managing limited resources, let us at least peg it for the next budget.
But remember, Madam Senator, this will go through 2 administrations. And it's the last 6 months of the Aquino administration, and the next 6 months, the first 6 months, crucial 6 months. That's 300 million. I don't know where to find it now.
Right.
However, if it is your strong advocacy to peg it at 1,300, if the PNP hierarchy feels strongly about it, based on this computation, is it something so essential for your efficiency? They feel very strongly about it. It is so essential to their efficiency. That's why they made the proposal. Remember, we are doing the budget not only for this administration, but possibly yours or the next. We don't know. So let us analyze this carefully. I see Senator Coco going like that. It could be yours,
Yes.
or yours, or yours. Correct? Or yours. So,
Who are you pointing to, Madam Chairman?
I don't know.
Yours. No.
So, if you feel very strongly about it, let us know, and maybe your staff can find something. It can come from the IUDs of Senator Soto or the trees of the NGO.
Okay. Next question, Madam Chairman. With regarding to, this is with the DILG. There used to be the Barangay Anti-Drug Council.
Meron pa kayo?
Yun po ay isang paraan para mapunuan ang kakulangan ng mga pulis sa lansangan, sapagkat malaki po ang problema natin sa droga at krimen. kung kasama po natin ang mga barangay, nabibigyan po sila ng responsibilidad na mag-report. Sabi ko nga, halos walang nangyayari sa barangay na hindi alam ng barangay captain. Malaking tulong po yon, magbigay ng tip kung sino yung mga pushers, kung sino yung mga may mga indiscriminate firing doon. Gusto ko lang pong tanungin, kung nagpulong na po ang DILG at kung ito po ay kinoconvene na nila ulit o kanilang binubuo.
Sigurado ka, bawat barangay, nakita sa barangay na. Reactivate pa lang. Oh, how long has it been there? The Barangay Anti-Drug Council was just reactivated last June. Why was it closed in the first place? Why will it die down? That's why the drugs proliferated.
So now they reactivated it in June. How many times?
This is under the local government. The Drug Abuse Act is at Senator Soto's bill that had the Barangay Anti-Drug Council, and the People's Law Enforcement is part of the local government code of the tatay of Senator Coco. And these were two very important local government programs. Yes, Mel is a former mayor and he knows. I just wonder, I will ask myself, why does it need to be activated? Bakit hindi pinagpursige?
Maybe we can proceed
Yes.
to the next question
Okay.
of Senator
No,
Po, because
yeah,
it's the
General-
time, the hour is
Yes.
getting late.
Yes.
Yes.
No, just the last 2 points. So again, General Marquez. So they've already met. I'm sorry, Madam Chairman. Have they already met? And if we can request a copy of the minutes of the meeting
Maybe-
and the designations.
Reactivated lang or they're meeting already? Wala pa. They're in the process of reactivating the pleb and the Anti-Drug Council.
So there's no budget allocation for now, right?
It is LGU funded.
LGU funding.
Yes.
Okay, this is something to take note of, Madam
That's very
Chairman.
important, yeah.
Next, because if we're serious about fighting drugs, we really need to ensure that we have enough men helping us,
Yes.
and we cannot rely on
You're
the
correct,
ratio
barangay
now
level.
as proposed for the PNP,
Yeah.
the number of personnel. May I also request for the exams being given in the recruitment of police officers? Who are the ones composing the exams? And do you have a new one, or is it just a standard exam that you buy?
Antique, ha? Antique. San Pablo. Kayong gumagawa. Ng Polcom.
So next time.
But it changes every year. There's a test development committee, Madam Senator, composed of the NAPOLCOM, the PNP, even the academe, to come up with the questions, and it changes every year.
Okay, maybe we can ask for a copy at their convenience of the ones that were already used.
Can you kindly give us a copy of the kind
Just
of
to make
test?
sure that it's in
Is that allowed?
the Philippine context. I think you gave me already before, so you can give me again, just to make sure there was an improvement from the first time in 2013 when I asked it. Kasi, Madam Chairman, may mga ibang tanong po doon na wala naman pong kinalaman din sa law enforcement, katulad
Such
ng
as?
saan ginanap ang Summer Olympics noong 1976, for example. Where was the Summer Olympics held in 1976? There was a question.
Kasi meron din current events.
Pero medyo ano po yun hindi na po current yon. This was an exam that I received, a copy of it. I received it in 2013, so I wouldn't count it as current events anymore. I'm just saying, Madam Chairman, there could be questions like, kung merong pumunta sa presintong isang babaeng nabugbog, ano ang mga dapat gawin? A, bigyan ng paunang lunas. B, Yung mga ganun ba?
Multiple choice.
No, multiple choice, or they could even write it down. But what I'm saying is, it reinforces also what the core competence of the ones that we are recruiting should be.
Correct.
So that's just
In fact, if I may suggest, gender sensitivity should also be part of that test.
absolutely. That's why I just want to make sure
Yes.
also so that we have the good quality of
Also
police,
give me a
just
copy
like
of
General
this.
Marquez.
Sige.
Yes. And well, lastly, this is just a short manifestation, Madam Chairman. The General, during the APEC, I saw coverage about the security, and I think it was heartwarming to see that the General himself bought ice cream for his men who were watching, who were in charge of security at that time. That is really very, for me, that's a touch that the General has, even with his firm and strict,
Anong klaseng ice cream?
Okay.
a strict way of running the organization. He has a very good rapport with his men, and also he also made the point when he said that he felt that some of his men's rights were actually violated, harassment or physical violence. But instead of taking the law into his own hands, he is thinking of filing cases against them. I mean, whether that's proven or not, at least he's leaving it up to the process. And I salute you for that. Instead of taking things in your own hands, you're disciplining your men, you're rewarding them when they need to be rewarded. And that's a hallmark of a leader. And we thank him, Madam Chairman. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Senator Poe.
Thank
Is there
you.
anyone else in the chamber who would wish to raise questions? Senator Pimentel, it's 1:25 in the afternoon.
Yes, sir. Taking off from the last point of Senator Poe, just one question. Because I read recently about this report of a murder suspect being shot to death inside a police van while he sat in between two police escorts being brought to a hearing or an investigation. So, may we get what is the reaction or the sentiment of the chief PNP every time he gets a report like this? Presumably the murder suspect was in handcuffs and he had the guts to grab one of the firearms of his escorts, and this is not the first time that this has happened. So are we learning from past incidents so that do we take any adjustments in our protocols so that murder suspects or suspects in handcuffs will not have the guts to try to grab the firearms of their escorts? In short, my question is, are we reacting to events like this?
Yes.
Or pabayaan na lang natin
Oh
yan?
no, it is definitely an unfortunate incident, and they've ordered an investigation, and yesterday are making sure that it should not happen again.
Well, but this has happened maybe hundreds of times. So we have not learned from the 99 earlier times.
Charges have been filed in past incidents.
Ask the internal affairs to find out if there are other factors that we are not seeing at the moment.
It's not an isolated incident. We can see that. And charges have been filed for those in the past. They're still studying what can be done further to avoid such incidents, and they're not going to tolerate that.
I think the suspect, the person is a suspect in the murder of a judge. Talaga, of course, talagang we have to condemn the killing of a judge. But we have to solve the crime. We have to solve the crime, arrest a suspect, bring him to trial, convince the judge to convict him, and then let that person spend time in jail in accordance with his penalty. No shortcuts. Okay, so all killings of judges must be solved, and all judge killers must be caught. And I will extend the concept to all cop killers. Dapat ganun din. All killings of policemen must be solved. So because if you cannot solve the killing of your own men, how can the common man trust that you can solve the crime committed against us? So I'm willing to give you all the assistance you need to be able to say that all cop killers, all judge killers will be brought to justice. But no shortcuts, sir. Sa kulungan po ang ending. Dapat sa kulungan ang ending. Kung life sentence, mabulok siya sa kulungan. Doon po ang ending. Okay, so let us have a well-equipped PNP which will solve all of this. Kung anong kailangan nyo. If you need air assets, you should be able to get it to solve this. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pimentel. There are no other member of the chamber who has manifested their desire to raise questions on the budget. We therefore now consider the budget of the Department of Interior and Local Governments and the Philippine National Police, the National Police Commission, Public Safety College, Local Government Academy, Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, Office of the Secretary, Bureau of Fire Protection, as being submitted to the plenary for its consideration. That should end our morning session, and we shall suspend the session at this point, and we shall resume at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So session suspended until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.